Fear is one thing that seems to be an obsession in today's culture. We are fascinated with fear. We pay for horror films, dangerous activities, haunted houses, haunted trails. We pay for people to scare us. Or we even scare our friends in silly little ways, like jumping up and surprising them, or sneaking up behind them unexpectedly and doing the little push thing. But also there are more serious ways for us to be scared. And there's actually so many fears that are clinically and not clinically named that when I went to look up some online and print out a page, it spanned over 20 pages. And I'm pretty sure that not all of the names were there. It wasn't a very reliable source. But anyways, it would seem that there's a lot of phobias in existence. And in life, fear is something that has to be faced over and over again. And although it would seem that typical people would try to avoid fear, most people in our culture actually go looking for it. Amusement parks give us the thrill of heights and being afraid of what's yet to come, and horror films can capture every type of fear imaginable. Scary places like haunted trails can give us unexpected surprises or creepy or disgusting sights. And extreme sports are other ways that people can go looking for the thrill of fear. Skydiving, for instance, is a combination of many fears. Heights, because you're thousands of feet in the air, and fear of the unknown, because you don't really know what it's like to be in free fall until you step off of the plane. And death. On my skydive, I experienced what type of fear like that was. So, I made a solo jump. I woke up at 6:30 on a free Saturday morning and spent 6 or 7 hours in a class learning how to do it by myself. And I mean, yes, during the actual free fall, before you pull the parachute, I had 2 instructors beside me, but I was in charge of pulling my own parachute and making the landing by myself, which is kind of intimidating. And I found it really difficult to imagine that process, even though we had been going over it all day. And most of that day, we spent the class going over emergency procedures and how to deal with situations that are unusual and require us to save ourselves. And I was thinking, okay, not many people actually get hurt, so it won't be that big of a deal. But then they told us about how actually the weekend before I had made my dive, a girl had been on her first solo skydive, and everything was fine in free fall, and she went to pull her parachute, and after you pull your parachute, you're supposed to do a maneuverability test of your parachute. What you do is you take the handles of the brakes and you pull them down, and that unlocks them, and then you pull the one on your left, you do a 360 to the left, bring it back up, pull the one on your right and do a 360 to your right, back up, pull them both down, and that's called a flare, and that's practicing how to do that because that's what you do to land. And what the girl had done was she only unhooked one of her handles for the brakes, and so she was spinning out of control. And you would think, since you spend so much time going over what you're supposed to actually do, that she would recognize, oh, I'm spinning, so one of my brakes is not working out right. But actually, in the heat of the moment, she couldn't do it. And that was something that I was actually really afraid of. Would I have the composure to break down the situation and figure out what I was supposed to do from 5,500 feet in the air? And with everything going on, would I have the composure to figure it out? And what if something did go wrong? And that was kind of what really scared me. And I mean, the girl who had gotten hurt, luckily she didn't die. She just broke a lot of bones and had several serious injuries. But what if that would be me? What if I wouldn't be able to deal with something so simple, so basic, something that I'd been training for all day? But really, the only way to overcome fear, really any type of fear, is first, after having the experience of the preparation and knowing what to do, then you just have to trust in whatever or whomever, in this skydiving case it was me, is in control. You just have to trust yourself and trust that you've learned everything you need to do, and trust that you can do it, and go off of what you learned in the past and make all the right choices. And what really frightened me was, so we got up in the plane and we took off, and I'm sitting there waiting to jump out of the plane, and we reach our altitude, and we actually couldn't go all the way up because just as we took off, the wind picked up, and originally there was no wind, so they were going to drop us right over the landing site, which was a triangle of grass, which was actually pretty large, at the airport where we were allowed to land, or at least we were trying to make our landing pattern there. But it ended up that I had to be the first one out of the plane, which was kind of intimidating because usually you would think that you would get to watch someone else go and be like, okay, I'm going to be ready to do this now. So when someone else did it, I can do it too. But no, I had to go first, and the wind was not what we anticipated, and it was raining, which was actually pretty neat because usually the rain falls down on you, but you're jumping into the rain, and the drops are actually coming up at our faces. So that was kind of a little scary, but actually at the same time pretty cool. And so we make our jump, and we're jumping right over top of the landing area in the airport, but the wind had picked up, and so the wind ended up pushing me and everyone else farther than we anticipated. And I was, after successfully pulling my parachute, and my maneuverability was fine, and my parachute was working right, I realized, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to decide where I'm going to land if I can't land there, but I checked my altitude and I'm past the point of where I'm supposed to have decided where I was going to land. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to make up my landing pattern and go with it, and hopefully everything would be fine. So I started my landing pattern kind of early because I wanted to make sure that I hit the airport target. And I'm making my second out of the 3 turns, and I still have another 1,000 feet to land. So that was, and 1,000 feet is when you're supposed to start your landing pattern. And just then my instructor came in on the radio and was like, okay, you're doing fine. Good decision making there, and way to take control of the situation, and go ahead and make the landing, you'll be fine. And then he had to go. And the reason he had to actually go was because the guy after me jumped out of the plane, who was also doing his first solo dive, couldn't make his landing at the airport because the wind pushed him too far, and he actually landed on the other side of the river and other side of the highway that was next to the airport. So they had to go pick him up, and his instructor had dropped his walkie-talkie in free fall, so couldn't talk to him. So my instructor had to help him out and help him land. But he ended up landing perfectly, as did I, and we were fine, and we trusted our training that we had had all 6-7 hours of the day. So we were able to have the composure to deal with the situation that kind of was a little scary, and we didn't think we were ready for it, but trusting in ourselves and trusting in our abilities, we were able to do it. And that's just what you have to do with fear. You have to trust in your past experience and trust in your past training and trust that you actually know what you're doing, and then move forward and go through, and that's how you overcome it.